What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Bassline Frequency Podcast. This is the podcast, y'all, where we talk about bass, sound, and music productions. Not just from specs and charts, but from real world experience. Now, today's episode is based on a question I've been seeing a lot lately. I saw it in my analytics, I saw it in the search terms, and I even seen people ask it everywhere online. And that question is, good Lord, why is everything in my way? Okay, y'all, my bad. It's like every time my hand goes somewhere, I'm smacking something to hit the mic. I'm tripping. But anyway, the question is, what bass frequency actually hits the hardest on subwoofers? And the reason this question keeps coming up is because a lot of people are confused. They see numbers, charts, and opinions, but they don't always get real answers. So today, we're going to clear some of that up for you. No overcomplicating it, no gatekeeping, just the truth about what actually makes bass hit. Now, when most people ask about bass frequencies, what they really want to know is, what number should I aim for? They're asking, is 20 hertz better than 30 hertz? Is lower always better? Why does one system shake everything and another doesn't? And that makes sense because bass looks like math on paper. I mean, you see frequency charts, you see subwoofer specs, you see test videos, but here's the first thing people need to understand. Bass is not just a number, it's an experience. You don't hear bass the same way you hear vocals. You feel it in your body, in the room, in the car. That's why two systems playing the same frequency can feel completely different. Now, let me say this clearly. Lower frequencies does not automatically mean harder bass. That is the biggest misunderstanding in bass culture. A lot of people think if I just go lower, it'll hit harder. But what actually happens a lot of the time is the bass gets quieter. The system struggles, the sound turns muddy, the energy disappears. That's because most systems, especially car audio and consumer setups, cannot efficiently reproduce ultra low frequency. So instead of powerful bass, you get wasted energy. And here's the truth. Bass hits hardest where your system is efficient, not where the number is lowest. And you know what? I'm going to put some bass frequencies on, and I don't know. I guess it all depends on what type of system you have, how powerful your system is. You might see where I'm going to actually put one with some bass that's so low you can't hear it, but you can see the speaker moving. So let me head over here for a second. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. Okay. Yeah, give me a second. All right, try this on for size. I'm going to go from a little high bass. It's going to get punchier, but it's going to get deeper. And I think y'all kind of get the gist of what I'm saying about sometimes ultra low, low bass can get so quiet and you really just, it's pretty much visual basically after that. All right, let me quit rambling. Here we go. Hold up. Here we go.
Bassline frequency bass check. Let's go.
And as you see, it gets real muddy after, I think, a couple of tones back. But yeah, I think y'all get the message. And you know what I'm saying? Feel free to try it on different different systems. Even try it on your earphones. I'm telling y'all, there is a big difference to it. And that's why I seriously think it comes to preference more than it does anything else. So we're going to move right along now. Once again, though, before we go any further, let me say this clearly. Lower frequency does not automatically mean harder bass. Once again, check out the little bass check there and you be your own judge. And then you can let your boy know what you come up with. I mean, I'm always here to and anxious to hear what y'all got to say about anything that we talk about on this. But I'm going to say this again. The biggest misunderstanding in the bass culture is lower frequency does not automatically mean harder bass. And a lot of people think if I just go lower, it'll hit harder. But I'm pretty sure you just heard the bass check. And the lower I went, well, yeah, that part. But what actually happens a lot of the time is the bass get quieter, the system struggles, the sound turns muddy, you heard that, the energy disappears. That's because most systems, especially car audio and consumer setups, cannot efficiently reproduce that ultra low frequency. So instead of powerful bass, you get wasted energy. Here's the truth. Bass hits hardest where your system is efficient, not where the numbers is lowest. And I don't know why I feel like I done already said this, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to repeat it. Well, I just did, so we're going to go on. Let's talk about, what really matters, okay? Your system as a whole, right? Okay, so now you got your subwoofer, your box, your amps, and space all work together. Now, a frequency that sounds amazing in one setup might sound weak in another. That's why people argue online about which hertz is better because they're talking about different systems. And the space you're in, bass reacts heavily to space. And car boost bass naturally. Small rooms trap bass. Big rooms absorb bass. That's why bass that slaps in a car might feel weak on headphones or in a living room. The space changes everything, y'all. And as far as human hearing, humans don't hear bass evenly. You see, our ears are more sensitive in certain low frequencies ranges, which is why bass in the 30 to 60 hertz range often feels punchier than ultra low frequencies. That's why some bass lines feel huge without being extremely low. So, what do you think about that? Now, I mean, because from a producer perspective, bass isn't about numbers. Good bass leaves space, supports the groove, works with the kick, feels control. Bad bass eats headroom, masks everything, sounds loud but empty, falls apart on different systems. Once again, as I was speaking earlier. Well, you can have bass that's technically low and still feel weak. And you can have bass that isn't ultra low and still hits harder. Once again, like I was saying, or not saying, what the bass check. You heard the punch bass. Even though it was going a little bit deeper, it kept going on down. And the deeper it got, the louder, well, the weaker it started sounding. To the point on certain systems, excuse me, on certain systems you probably couldn't even hear the bass, even to the point that it got muddy. And when it get muddy, well, when it's low and you can't hear the bass, I mean, it's useless. If you're not really trying to, if you want to hear bass and you can't hear it, point blank, it's wasted time, wasted energy. If it gets muddy, it can potentially blow your speakers. If you do it too long, cause distortion. So that part. And you can have bass that isn't ultra low and still hits hard. Partially that very first part is still ultra low, but you can hear it. That bass that rumbles, it's deep, puts pressure on your ears. But then, like I was saying, as it goes lower, it gets kind of muddy. It gets quiet. Your speakers might move, but you're not hearing anything. Now, if that's the way you want to go with it, cool, by all means. But most people, they want to hear their bass. And I've done some tracks that actually went so ultra low, but I did it on purpose to let you just look at your speakers just move crazy without hearing that sound. I call it ghost bass, but you can call it whatever you want to call it. But that part is what we trying to get to. But good bass is about control and not just depth. DEPTH. Y'all, I've never been able to say that word right. Now, so maybe y'all can say it better than me. We're going to move right along. But, this is just something where we're going to dive deep into when we talk about experimental bass design in a future episode. Yo, before we get into the takeaways, it's time for the bass track of the week. And for this episode, I'm using one of my own tracks. Yes, because it fits exactly what we've been talking about today. Bass that hits without relying on extreme low frequencies. So notice how the bass feels solid without taking over the whole mix. That's not about chasing the lowest number. That's about balance and control. This track is a good example of bass working with the system, not against it. And the track is none other than Bass Flex, the bass edition. I actually did a regular version of it, nothing too different. It was supposed to be like a rap type deal, but things didn't fall through. And I'm like, well, shoot, I'm going to use this beat for something else. So yeah, here it goes. simplify everything, shall we? If you want bass that actually hits, stop chasing the lowest number. Tune for clarity, not just for rumble. Test your sound at different volumes and then listen on different systems. Trust your ears more than charts. Now, here's a big one, y'all. If your bass disappears when you turn it up, it's not hidden, it's collapsing. Alright, good bass stays controlled even when it's loud. So, when people ask what bass frequency hits the hardest, the real answer is the frequency your system can reproduce cleanly and efficiently. That's not a dodge, that's the truth. Once you understand that, see, everything changes. How you tune, how you design bass, how you listen to music. So, I'm done. Yo, if this episode helped you, clips are dropping all week, breaking this down even further. So make sure you're following the Bassline Frequency Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. And in the next episode, we're getting into experimental bass design. How producers actually create new bass sounds instead of copying presets. This is the Bassline Frequency Podcast, where bass get real answers. And yo, you better know I'm gonna constantly bring that bass. And I appreciate y'all checking me out. This is Brian, aka Scope to Producer, signing out.